The practitioner of Chö, who accompanied my uncle Togden to the cave in which he was to make his solitary retreat, led him by an extremely circuitous route that travelled by way of so many lonely spots favourable to his practice that instead of the usual 4 days, it took them well over a month to reach their destination. And on the way each day, in the course of their ordinary conversation, he communicated straightforward instructions on all aspects of practice, not just on the chöd, to my uncle, so that when he was finally left alone, Togden knew exactly what he should do. My uncle stayed for several years in that retreat, and when he finally left it, he had already developed the remarkable powers that led people to give him the name or title of Togden, which means accomplished yogi, by which I have always referred to him, although his given name was Ujin Tenzin. He continued thereafter to make frequent retreats, between which he travelled from place to place. His wanderings came to the attention of the Chinese authorities, who were then making inroads into eastern Tibet, and they arrested him and called upon him to explain himself. Because of the way he was as an individual, my uncle was not able to give them an answer to their satisfaction, and so they decided he must be a spy. His execution was ordered, but despite several attempts to shoot him, it proved impossible to kill him. When he was released, the people of the area began to call him Tugden. He could also communicate so well with animals that even the wild and timid mountain deer that normally ran away from everyone freely came to him and stayed wherever he did. Less docile creatures also frequented his company. On one occasion, when the king of Durgay himself came to visit Togden, his minister climbed up to Togden's cave to announce the arrival of the king and found an enormous mountain lion seated peacefully beside the yogi. The king had no choice but to share the company of that most royal of beasts if he wished to be received. This he did, with no little trepidation. Living as far as he did from any centres of habitation, considerable hardship was involved for all those who gradually heard of Togden's reputation as a practitioner and came to seek him out to receive teachings from him. The same was also true of my other uncle, Khyentse Chökyi Wangchuk. Although the circumstances of his early life had been very different from Togden's. He had been recognized at an early age as a tulku and was enthroned as the reincarnation of the abbot of 4 important monasteries. In this position, he was expected to conform to a certain pattern of life involving administrative and even political duties, as well as fulfilling scholarly and ritual obligations. He, however, despite considerable opposition, preferred to spend his life in retreat, dedicating his life to practice. When in retreat, he too lived in remote isolation, in his case in a cave above the snow line, where there was snow all the year round. But such was his reputation as a practitioner, and in particular as a tertan, or discoverer of text and hidden objects in the past, discoverer of text and objects hidden in the past to be revealed later, that he was sought out by those determined to receive teachings from him. Strange things frequently happened around Khyentse Chökyi Wangchuk, connected with his capacity as a tertan. On one occasion, when I was still quite young, I went to stay in a cave close by, but a little below my uncle's. While there, I had a dream one night in which a dakini appeared to me and gave me a small scroll of paper on which there was written a sacred text. She explained that the text was very important and that on waking I should give it to my uncle. By this time my practice had already developed to the extent that I could maintain awareness throughout my sleep and dreams, and in this dream I knew that I was dreaming. I remember closing one of my fists around the scroll and then closing the other fist tightly around the first. The rest of the night passed uneventfully, and when I awoke at dawn, I found that my fists were still tightly clenched one around the other. When I opened my hands, I found that there really was a small scroll in the palm of one hand. I at once went in great excitement to knock on the door of my uncle's cave. It was not normally permitted to disturb him at such an early hour, as he would be engaged in his morning session of practice, but I was too excited to wait. He came to the door, and I explained what had happened and showed him the scroll. He looked at it for a moment quite calmly and said, "Thank you, I was expecting this." Then he went back to his practice, as if nothing extraordinary had happened at all. On another occasion, he asked my advice about a vision he had had of where a terma, a hidden text or object, would be discovered.